So this week I thought I would take a look at someone called Constance Marten, and now this lady is on trial at the Old Bailey at the moment, and she is another aristocrat. So last week obviously I was looking at the palms of Prince Harry. Now this lady, she is on trial for gross negligence manslaughter. Her baby was found, discovered in a little carrier bag in an allotment shed. So I was sent this image by Terry, actually, with a little summary of what's been going on about this person. I thought, well, it'd be fascinating to see what her hand can tell me. This is the only image I can actually find online of her hand, so this is the only thing I'll be looking at today. So can this image tell us, in fact, who this person is in terms of her character, her personality? What sort of type of person is she? Does she have the tendencies to neglect, abuse, murder? Can her hand show us reasons as to how and why she ended up in this situation, and obviously the unfortunate event of her baby's death? Unfortunate is an understatement, really, isn't it? But so just to get an idea, an overall basic template of this person, this is Constance is a water hand, and we can see here the length of the Saturn finger is 7 lengths of the palms, 7/8 of the palm's length or longer. So we know we have a water hand. And also, in terms of the general shape of the hand, the palm itself is just on the rectangular side, although you can see it just sort of splay outwards. If you put a square on top of it here, you can see how the palm is broad-topped spatulate. And so this shows someone who is constantly thinking. This is an emotionally motivated individual. They are someone who is highly sensitive. They are highly lively in their thoughts and their feelings, but there's also this is an intuitive hand shape. The overall pointed fingers here, especially with Jupiter and Mercury, they're very tapering, thin and pointed, and it shows the thumb is as well, and that actually points towards refined taste and somewhat sort of lacking in physical energy, but not hugely. You know, we've got a decent amount of Venus here. The fingers being this pointed here, tapering off quite gently, it shows a flowing of ideas, and again this coincides with this. It almost exacerbates what we already see here with this spatula-topped palm. And so the ideas, this can create a sort of getting carried away with unrealistic notions. Now, especially when we see the headline, because this is a particularly interesting headline. We can see it here arcing quite sharply at a certain point in this person's life down towards Luna, into the lower realms of the unconscious, the realms of imagination, thoughts and ideas. Also, notice how the fingertips themselves, and I don't want to pay too much attention to this aspect, but look how red they are in it. The redness in a person's palms often shows an overactivity in that certain area. Now, the first phalanges of a person's fingers shows the kind of the spiritual, the ego, where the ideas come from. And so where this person's ideas come from flow very naturally, and they are potentially quite unrealistic. That's quite a negative term, isn't it? But highly imaginative, you know, and when we utilize unrealistic thoughts, we can put them into practice in all sorts of career paths, artistic career and creative career roles. You know, Walt Disney had a headline that delved into the fantasy. There are pros and cons to all areas of the palm, so sometimes I think you know, we can say things that might just sort of there might be a stigma attached to the word, but the overall conclusion that I'm beginning to draw here is that this person has a tendency to get carried away with unrealistic notions. And where the headline begins to start arcing quite sharply into Luna is at the age where the fate line meets the headline, and it's that classic age of 35. Now, intuitive hands are generally highly sensitive. As I've already mentioned, this person is highly sensitive, and because of this, they often have coping mechanisms. They don't deal well with the average humdrum practicalities of life, this can really get them down. It can really pull them down, and it can hurt. They're just sensitive people. The pros are that they can pick up on. They have an innate aptitude for the occult and the paranormal. The cons there are that they're so open-minded, and you can see here the headline is, there's a vast gap between the head and the heart line, and the heart line is actually quite low lying. It shows a compassionate, caring nature and a highly open-minded, a highly warm individual, and this person's heart line rises right up in between Saturn and Jupiter as well, and it shows actually this person has a strong sense of right and wrong, and she obviously cares about her environment. A low-lying heart line shows a compassionate sort of nature, someone who is potentially taken in by a sob story. This is someone who is compassionate and caring. But the cons here are that they have a potential to be taken in by those who are want to exploit or abuse. Now, being that inherently this is a dreamer of beautiful things and has no real place with the average sort of 9 to 5, unfortunately this person was brought up in very sort of wealthy, prestigious environment, so I feel that it's likely they weren't provided with the necessary life skills and understanding of the world around them, which is a requirement for someone of this hand type. So they weren't actually well equipped enough to deal with the possible threats of the outside world, the harshness, life skills such as basic cooking, how to deal with finances, this sort of thing weren't really provided with this person. And you can see the lifeline here, the way it kind of sharply pulls away from the headline. It's quite a direction change here, and it to me I feel as though this is partly a sign of almost like this sort of runaway effect, and you can kind of see it here from a fairly early age, well, maybe early 20s anyway. And here this is particularly telling. These deep, powerful this is ingrained anger here relating to family trauma. And I do think that there's a feeling here of resentment towards family. And the way this headline here begins to arc at 35 down towards Luna, it sort of indicates falling in with the wrong crowd, being influenced by some other type of way of thinking. There's a strong money line here, which sort of appears to hit the heart line, and it goes nowhere from there, or at least you would read it the other way, but it comes from emotion. It comes from it doesn't sort of come from anywhere else. So it sort of seems as though this person's money is tied to family. You could say that she's decided to cut off the money tap, so to speak, or this shows her feelings. No, this is the right hand, so this would show that there's an emotional detachment from the material. I can't say too much when it comes to the chirological nature of this person's palm, just because this is so blurry. But the one factor I haven't mentioned chirognomy wise is this humongous gap between Mercury, such a fine and tapered tip of Mercury here, between Apollo and Mercury. And this really, okay, you could say, well, that's because of the nature she's holding the cigarette in her hand. But if you want to hold a pen or a pencil in this same manner, you'll find that your finger does not do this unless you are, you have this great desire to break away from your own environment, to escape, to travel, and to enjoy your own privacy, to enjoy a life that's very removed from the one that is imposed on you. And that's what this shows here. It sort of looks as though there's a need to escape. The intentions of this person shown in their hand, I can only assume this person has the best of intentions for others. Saturn is placed very high. The texture appears to be of a soft and sensitive. Everything about this person, I can't say there's any inclination here of deceit. There's no aggression, outward aggression towards others, an intention of harm, at least I can't see. The thumb itself shows perhaps more ideas than willpower, but overall it's fairly balanced. It's not the most fortunate of angles to analyze a thumb, but this does not look like, at least from what I've got here, the sort of thumb that is failing this individual with anger issues. I don't see that. In fact, I see, as I have already said, refined taste. This is someone who likely is quite good in short bursts, quite efficient and focused in short bursts, but then needs a rest. In fact, there's not a great deal of physical energy about this person. Slightly too many ideas, and not enough drive to action them. The main thing I want to point out, chirognomy wise, is this slightly sort of ballooning effect of the second phalanx of Jupiter. Now this is the area of executive decision making. It shows a blockage in this area here. There's this functioning of this person's abilities is somehow impeded. There's a blockage here. There's work that needs to be done here, it seems. That's from what I'm getting here, and it's subtle, but it's there. And with everything else that I've mentioned here, the gullibility, the unrealistic ideas, the getting carried away with these ideas, the amount of these ideas, the vulnerability of this person who is likely to be exploited by emotional abusers and influencers, is quite great. And unfortunately for this person, this is, I see, a victim more than a suspect. Water hands are fluid and adaptable. They are not adverse to change, and this person certainly has been through many changes in their currently, they've not lived all that long. Their life, they've seen a lot, and they are, it's not change that they have an issue with, it's predators, because like water, they are susceptible to the elements. Like creatures in the ocean, they are susceptible to the larger predators that seek them out. This person unfortunately has and will always need protection and guidance and support. And unfortunately, when this type of person doesn't receive that, they fall into the hands of those that might exploit them. At least they're much more likely for that to happen, or they make decisions not in their own best interest. Quite likely they are guided by their instinct, by their intuition, by their subconscious, by the abstract. And ironically, they will usually devote themselves to what is right for others, even in death. This is a very current case study. I don't normally do things like this, and I do not think that this is the last we will hear of this person. I think that the trial of this lady will be quite a powerful and ongoing sort of case study for many years. We can see the fate line, or the career line. It travels up towards Saturn, and it almost gives the appearance that it travels onto the Saturn finger itself. So too does this effort line from deep in from the lifeline, from this point of early family trauma. And it almost sort of feels as though there's a feeling here that this person's family was taking something from them, and she wanted to make a better life for herself, pull herself out of that situation. But when an effort line pulls itself towards up onto the Jupiter finger itself, it's often Now, I can't be certain if that's what's happening here because of the clarity of this image, but when that does happen, it's a good thing. And actually, it shows that when a person's efforts in their life are, their ambitions are fulfilled and is seen by others, and they make great changes and impact the lives of many, which seems strange to say in this case because only bad things are coming from what's occurring in her life at the moment and the choices that she's made. But when an ambition or effort line travels up onto the Jupiter mount, onto the Jupiter finger itself, and then up onto the second phalanx, it shows a person who brings themselves before others and receive honourable deeds and merits through distinguishing themselves. They positively change and affect the lives of others through their sort of ambitious pursuits. Now, I'm not saying that's exactly what I'm seeing here because I can't see it here. It's just too blurry. I can see the line itself reaching up on towards, just about on towards the Jupiter mount. So it could be that this line in fact grows and that perhaps, hopefully, it's possible that some good could somehow come from all of this, because I can see this, as I say, it's a compassionate and caring individual who wants what's best for others. And there's certainly a feeling here that this person has a lot of inside knowledge on a lot of powerful people. So it could be that all of this, her entire life so far, has been some sort of trial. And it's up to this person, it's their sort of life path, possibly to turn all of this negativity into something positive, to impact the lives of others for good, for the future. The fate line itself seems to sort of stem from deep down onto Luna and rises right up and sort of separates the palm in half. And this is always a sign of someone who has a lacking of control around their own fate, almost. So although I've already said, this person makes poor decisions, you could argue that in fact fatalism, that in fact a lot of what's occurred was outside of her control. And it does seem here that there is a line coming from underneath Venus, forgive me, and it looks to sort of strike at this person's fate quite early on, to impact it and pull away in towards Luna. And you could say that, you could interpret this as this person pulled away from her own environment because of the impact of her family. This person, however, they might be received, or whatever you might think of this person, they have a strong voice and they've yet to use it. I think truly this person has a lot to say and they are going to say it. They are highly ethically motivated, emotionally motivated, and however, I think it depends on the picture that's painted of this person. But regardless, they themselves, this person, I'm sure, has a lot of dirt, so to speak, on a lot of powerful people. So I suppose, I'll put the description of an article of the ongoing trial in this video description. But victims of abuse, whether emotional, physical, financial, psychological, they often fall into, especially when it occurs at an early age, into cycles of receiving that same abuse. And it's often people question whether or not they do it to themselves, and it's perhaps an unintentional mixture of both predators seeking out easy prey, and also it's falling into a trap, because, and this is my own personal feelings about victims of abuse, they can, I feel, fall into cycles of almost unintentionally seeking out predators or abusers, partly because it's what we know, and there's security and familiarity, there's comfort in what we know. And so when we fall into some sort of a slightly different environment of the same kind of abuse, perhaps, there's familiarity in it, and quite often self-sabotage is as a result of is a coping mechanism for people who have suffered so much abuse that when things are going right, something doesn't feel right about this scenario. I need to destroy it so that I can continue this cycle of despair and unhappiness, because that's all I know. And so that's sort of where I'm going with it. It's not, I think it's completely unintentional, it's unconscious. But for this person, I certainly feel that they have been subject to a lot of emotional abuse, traumas, and likely felt they had nowhere to run to. This person needed to run away, to get away. And where this person needed support, needed advice and guidance and help and love, they instead were rejected and made a suspect. So I think by further making this person a suspect, we're only exacerbating an issue. And actually, the reasons behind what happened are complex, and the solution towards sort of tackling and preventing this sort of thing from happening again is in exposing the reasons and the truths behind this person's early life. In my opinion, based on what I can see in this person's hand, this is not the hand of a murderer, and the tragic and awful event that occurred around this person's child, I feel, was due to neglect, and the circumstances around that neglect were due to feelings of not feeling they could turn towards the authorities, towards family, or to any support network that they had made previously. I feel this person felt stuck, had nowhere to go, and decided to rely on her own decision making. And unfortunately, because she was not equipped in this regard, and likely just didn't have what she needed around her, the basics, all these things contributed towards the awful event. In terms of law, when we put someone on trial, it's very black and white. Is it this verdict or is it this? Jury, you must decide. Is it manslaughter? Is it gross negligence? Is it murder? Is it this or that? Life is not black and white. The lines are often very blurred. Sometimes people are both victims and suspects, and in this case, I would think this person is very much a victim. Obviously, ultimately, this person's child has suffered, but there has also been a lot of suffering not identified in this person's life, and likely others that she knows about as well. And I think that this case will begin to unravel a can of worms. So watch this space in terms of this person's trial. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please let me know your thoughts, and perhaps you know a bit more about this trial than myself and you'd like to share those thoughts. Perhaps you saw something in this person's palm that I missed. That quite often happens, and sometimes I upload and think, oh, hang on, I forgot to say that. So let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.